What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? I've got three main takeaways from the marathon, and since I just finished the marathon, I thought today's vlog would kind of cover those main takeaways. So, takeaway number one, I want to talk about kind of like the bad that came from it, and that is that I cannot even walk right now. Basically, I'm limping everywhere I go. Crystal's like, I'm having to lean on Crystal to go anywhere. That's because my feet are incredibly overpronated. So like, I don't know how I can illustrate this, but like if this was my foot and this is my calf, basically, rather than my, I'm going to stand up, rather than my ankles being normal, they're in quite a bit. So every time I take a step, pronation is natural. Like I've been doing a whole bunch of reading on pronation. It's natural to have some degree of pronation. That's kind of like your shock absorbent system. But mine overpronates quite a bit. So it's just like a constant excessive force pushing down that ankle joint, and it hurts. It hurts a lot, and my ankles are incredibly swollen right now, and I don't have very much mobility in my ankles. They make insoles and they make shoes to correct for overpronation, but I honestly need to work more on just strengthening that arch more so than getting an insole, because that's kind of acting as a crutch. I just have really flat feet. That's kind of just one of my downsides genetically, I guess. I've got really flat feet, which leads to a flexible arch, which leads to overpronation and just overstressing that ankle joint. So that sucks. I didn't really notice it until running probably about 17 or 18 miles. After that point, it just really started hurting, and it hurts now quite a bit. But again, I never run that far, so I never really noticed how much I was overpronating to a negative effect until I ran the marathon. So that's one thing I learned. I've been kind of looking at different exercises that you can do to strengthen your arch to minimize that effect. So I'm probably going to be going down that rabbit hole. So that's one thing I've noticed. The second thing with regard to, actually I'm going to have just a couple random takeaways here. So the overpronation was bad. I did not really get, like cardiovascularly speaking, I was fine the whole way. Like I had a nice consistent pace the whole way. I didn't really fluctuate much there. I walked once after mile 20. I walked for like 2 or 3 miles after I hit mile 20, and then I ran the rest of it. But cardiovascularly speaking, everything was fine. The only reason I walked was because, like I was saying earlier, that overpronation was just causing so much pain in my ankle joint and my feet. But cardiovascularly speaking, I was totally fine. I think I was going at a slow enough pace that I wasn't going to get fatigued there. And then, as far as fuel needs are concerned, I was not hungry at all throughout the entire race. I didn't even eat much the night before the race. I didn't eat anything during the race other than a pickle, and I didn't eat anything really after the race. I honestly had one little small piece of salmon just to get something in, but I didn't really have any appetite that entire day, which I thought was kind of interesting. As far as like electrolytes and everything go, I did kind of manipulate electrolytes a little bit, and I may have tweaked it a little bit the wrong direction. And let me tell you what I mean by that. I had in my pocket, I carried 2 Zip Fizz containers and one of the Rapunzel brand vegetable bouillon cubes, which has about 1,050 milligrams of sodium. The morning of the race, I had a fatty coffee with 2 tablespoons of butter, so I had a fat source there. And then all I brought was that those 2 Zip Fizz and that bouillon cube. I had the first Zip Fizz after like mile 6 or 7, I believe. I didn't have any water with me, so I just kind of like tore it open with my teeth and then just, basically took down the powder. And that gave me a pretty noticeable boost. I felt much better after that. And then they had like water at the aid station, so I get like a little bitty cup of water sporadically throughout. And then I had that salt, that bouillon cube at I think around mile 13 or 14. And that was disgusting to take without any water. Let me tell you, just opening that thing up and just chewing on that pure bouillon cube, it was not good. I was looking forward to the next aid station water run. So I had that, and then I had the second Zip Fizz, second and final Zip Fizz, I believe around mile 18 or 19. And I think I was lopsided because generally speaking, I recommend about a 2-to-1 ratio of sodium to potassium. So 2 parts sodium to 1 part potassium. That's what I typically recommend for my clients. That's what I try and incorporate myself. Since I didn't have that much sodium, I had 1 pickle and then 1 cup of pickle juice, which probably was no more than 500 milligrams of sodium total. So when you add all those up, I wound up having more potassium than sodium, and I think having it flip flop like that, lopsided, led to an imbalance in my electrolytes and actually increased my swelling, because when I really started to notice the swelling in my ankles really increase, when I started walking, I just felt my feet just swell up. I shouldn't have ever started walking because it was even worse. But then I looked at my fingers, and my fingers were just huge, like swollen, and that was just a good sign of all the inflammation. For one, inflammation obviously, but then also the electrolytes not being in equilibrium with each other. Probably wasn't drinking enough water, and then too much potassium and not enough sodium. If I'd had more sodium, I could have kind of balanced that out. So that's the main takeaway with regard to electrolytes. And the other big main takeaway that I want to talk about is the reason I had the motivation to do the marathon in the first place, which is that I did not carb load the night before. I probably only had half of my calories. I'm doing 6,000 calories a day right now. I probably only had 3,000 calories the entire day preceding the marathon, because I didn't want to feel overly full while running. I didn't want to feel like I was gonna, throw up any food. I didn't want to feel like stuffed. So I only had 3,000 calories, all of, not carbs, but proteins and fats the day before the marathon. And the day of the marathon, like I said, I only had that coffee, and then the electrolytes the day of, and then that piece of salmon after the race. So no goos, no crackers. Everybody had like Gatorade, the little goo things, the crackers and stuff at the aid stations, and I just skipped all that. In fact, I skipped a lot of the water breaks at the aid stations too. Like, I didn't feel the need for that. I didn't at any point throughout the entire marathon feel that I was deprived of a fuel source or energy or any of that. So I felt rock solid the whole way through. And again, I mean, my time wasn't anything crazy. I don't remember what I got. I got like 5 hours and 27 minutes or something. So nothing impressive by marathon standards by any means. But again, this was the third time I've run all year. I'd only run twice prior to this marathon, and that was simply to break in my shoes. So no training really, and I finished this marathon without feeling depleted, deprived, malnourished, or lacking fuel in any way. So I get a lot of questions from people who are keto and they want to, perform at their best for like an endurance-based sport, which is totally understandable, right? And generally speaking, endurance-based sports like a marathon are going to be much more glycogen depleting, over a longer period of time than like a sprint or HIIT workout or something. HIIT workout's going to replenish or deplete it very quickly, but then you're going to replenish it much faster than if you're just like just a non-stop steady state marathon run. So a lot of people want to try and reach for the fast-acting carbs. Even if they're keto, they'll reach for just carb sources, even though they're on a ketogenic-based diet. So my argument, my theory, and my reasoning is that if you truly allow yourself to get fully keto adapted, which doesn't happen over a week's time, doesn't happen over a month's time, 6 months time, maybe not even a year's time, long-term adaptation without any, carb meals, random cheat days in between, that is what sets your body's norm to be keto. That is what allowed me, in my opinion, to go through a marathon with very little to no training and not at once feel deprived or depleted. I mean, granted, a lot of it is mindset and mental, and I wasn't going to not finish that race. Like, I wasn't going to give myself that option, but I felt fine, I felt totally fine from a energy standpoint with absolutely zero carbs throughout the entire race and the day preceding the race. And I think that is truly because I've just become so well at burning fat as a fuel source. I'm so deeply keto adapted, and that doesn't happen until you make keto your lifestyle and your norm, and you don't have these crazy random cheat meals in between. So that's my theory there. Again, the only thing that stopped me really was my feet hurting so much. That was the only thing that really slowed me down. But other than that, it was a great experience. Learned a lot about me, learned a lot about what I'm capable of, learned a lot about keto as it relates to endurance sports. So I feel like I can speak on that a little bit more now. Granted, I'm still no expert in marathoning or endurance events by any means, but at least I've kind of, touched into that a little bit. So with that said, hopefully you learned something here. Good experience for me. Hopefully y'all learned something. If you decide to do a marathon, my main point of advice would be to make sure you've got your electrolytes in the right order, sodium leading potassium, Make sure you've got good arch stability, whether that be with your shoes or your just strengthening of your arch support. And then make sure you're truly keto adapted if you're going to do a ketogenic marathon or whatever endurance sport you choose. So those are my main takeaways. Hope you enjoyed. Catch you next time. Take care.